Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. More drugs, weapons, and cell phones being dropped into BC prisons via drone.
Here in the Pacific region, we're seeing multiple a week.
Why the Corrections Union says the government isn't doing enough to stop it. Plus, one-on-one with Uber after the attack of an Abbotsford driver. We talk protection for the ride-sharing company's workers and what more needs to be done. And they're teeny tiny, but massively at risk.
Only about 10% are predated, and we're hoping for 0%.
Protecting the western painted turtles living in BC's Kootenay region.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. There's worry about an increase in drugs dropping from the sky onto the properties of BC prisons. Drones carrying packages have become one of the most popular ways to deliver contraband to people on the inside. Kuljeet Kaila is looking at the growing problem and the possible solutions being worked on.
Drones are a rising concern across Canadian prisons. It's literally this easy for drugs to fall from the sky. Now, this is just a mock simulation of what it could look like, but we're about to see just how big of a problem this really is.
This is, in the last 3 to 5 years, has become insane. It's absolutely insane.
This was found crashed by the Matsqui prison in Abbotsford.
So what do you think makes this similar to ones that you've seen?
Well, it's the tape, so you can see that they've got tape covering any sort of lights on the drone itself to make sure to conceal its identity. You can see on the bottom here that this is obviously some sort of device that the package was probably hooked onto to drop it. Here in the Pacific region, we're seeing multiple a week between our 9 institutions, but across the country, they're multiple a day. So it's become a daily occurrence for us.
And the drops can mean serious consequences. Last year, Randall says at the Matsqui prison, a single drop carrying fentanyl killed 1 person, saw 9 inmates overdose and taken to the emergency room, and 39 others needing medical support. This drone package was found with 13 ounces of crystal meth last fall.
It had a street value of around $7,800, and because of the supply and demand at the time, institutional value was around $180,000. Crystal meth getting into our institutions is extremely scary for everybody.
Items like that are causing debt among inmates to increase, not to mention more violence, made worse by weapons being dropped too. Hacksaw blades and ceramic knives, to name a few, also cell phones. In 2019, Correctional Services Canada committed to spending $6 million to install drone detection technology in 6 prisons. But the Union of Canadian Correctional Officers says there are huge delays. So to your knowledge, how many of the prisons have the new technology fully operating since 2019?
None. So far, they are installing the one in Donnacona, and we are still waiting for the tests.
Corrections won't say how many prisons have the technology. It says sharing their techniques to combat the introduction of contraband could create security vulnerabilities. It says we are currently working with different vendors on various methods for detecting drones. We will measure the performance of these systems and determine the potential for broader national deployment.
This camera can detect drones from pixels.
Meanwhile, this BC company, BlueVec Technology, says it's one of those vendors hoping Corrections chooses its technology.
So we call that the fingerprint of the drone. So when we can ID the make, model, and serial number, it's called fingerprinting it.
Really, the secret sauce is the ability to geolocate the pilot for apprehension purposes.
20 U.S. prisons are currently using the company's device, and the hope is to one day be part of the solution in Canada. Kuljeet Kaila, CBC News, Pitt Meadows.
The BC government has settled with TELUS Health. The Medical Services Commission was seeking a court injunction over allegations that the company's fee-based Life Plus program was charging patients for services that should be publicly covered. Mira Baines has been looking at these developments today. Mira, what does this mean for the program going forward now?
Well, Anita, the Medical Services Commission has reached an agreement with TELUS Health, basically to comply with the Medicare Protection Act. That means no more court action against TELUS Health over its Life Plus program. And TELUS Health has agreed to stop enrolling members in its Life Plus program. But those who are members right now will not lose their family doctor that they gained through the program. Now, there were allegations that TELUS Health was using this program to charge people $3,000 to $5,000 a year to get access to a family doctor. A private investigator was hired to look into these allegations, and evidence was gathered. But today we have an agreement. This is what Health Minister Adrian Dix had to say.
Since the application was filed, TELUS has demonstrated to the Commission's satisfaction that it will make the agreed upon modifications to its Life Plus program. I am delighted. To ensure compliance going forward, TELUS will no longer offer physician services to new clients through its Life Plus program.
And Dick said that there were no financial penalties for TELUS after this agreement. And I should mention that TELUS Health also issued a statement today. And I'll just summarize basically what it said, that it will be making modifications to some of its program, and also said that it will be clearly drawing the line between insured and uninsured services.
Okay, so what are critics saying about this mutual agreement?
Well, they're saying that there's no financial penalty involved here for a large company like TELUS, and they're asking, where is the deterrent? And so this is what BC Green Party MLA Adam Olsen said today. The Green Party was at the forefront of bringing these allegations to light.
Frankly, we've seen this privatized healthcare system under the BC NDP continuing to grow, despite their rhetoric saying that they support accessible, equitable, universal healthcare. And so really quite surprised to see that there's not any penalties, that they're clearly they were told that they have to stop doing what they were doing, and yet no penalties is really curious to us.
And that being said, there is still a case involving Harrison Healthcare in Vancouver that's going forward. Anita?
Mayor Baines reporting for us tonight from the BC Legislature. Thank you. Concert goers in Vancouver will soon have a new outdoor option, a brand new amphitheater at the PNE. The lofty design will accommodate between 1,500 to 10,000 people. Once completed, officials say the venue will feature the largest free-span timber roof structure in the world. It will be a mixed-use venue for concerts, arts and culture, programming, and community event, all while meeting sustainability standards.
This project adheres to the highest standards of environmental sustainability. The new amphitheater will be a showcase for British Columbia's building products and engineering capacity, and we anticipate that the new PNE amphitheater will be one of the most spectacular venues of its sort in North America.
Construction on the new amphitheater is set to begin next year, with the grand opening scheduled for 2026. After that, it is expected to host more than 75 performances a year. Well, an Uber driver from Abbotsford who was attacked by a passenger last week is pushing for better protections for gig workers. Amin Sood's dash cam captured the attack on video. He says it left him in pain and unable to work consistently. Sood and the president of the BC Federation of Labour met with BC's Minister of Labour earlier today to talk workplace protections and injury coverage.
Regardless who the employer is, I think our emphasis always is the workers, their health and safety, because employer, no matter who they are, their responsibility is the health and safety of their employees. And when they are injured, when they are ill, then what kind of support is available to them? And we want to make sure that they are covered.
We are now joined by Keithan Arung with Uber. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So initially, when Amin Sood was attacked, he got a response from Uber saying the alleged attacker's account was banned, and then a generic response about safety features for drivers. But is Uber doing anything for the driver, given that, he's lost his income and that happened while working for your company?
I want to start off by saying that The behavior in that video is completely disturbing and absolutely unacceptable. As you mentioned, we banned the rider's account from the platform right away. And the day the driver reached out to us, we did connect with him. And now we're cooperating with the police on their investigation.
Okay, so with that, I want to play you a clip here of Amin Sood because clearly no compensation is being given to him. So let's listen to what he has to say.
They want us to have a commercial inspection. They check our criminal record, and they want us to be insured, commercial insurance for the passenger safety. And now I understood that passenger safety is there, but if they have a $4 ride and they make some excuse or accident or something, they are not taking any kind of responsibility and they're not standing for drivers.
So is it fair to say, given your response to the first question and this clip from Amin Sood, that drivers essentially bear all the car and insurance costs, but they get nothing back if they're injured on the job?
So under the Employment Standards Act in British Columbia right now, drivers are considered independent contractors. We believe we do need to and can level up app-based work, which is why for over the last year and a half now, we've been working with a union called the United Food and Commercial Workers of Canada, UFCW Canada, which is our country's largest private sector union, to do two things. One, for the union to provide representation for drivers, and they have provided representation for over 750 drivers on the platform when they've had issues with Uber or account-related issues. And two, which is getting to what we're talking about today, which is jointly advocating to government to introduce a set of industry-wide standards for all app-based workers. And this would introduce new benefits. One of them is occupational accident coverage.
So why wait for the government to make changes on this? Why not just protect workers on your own?
So as I mentioned, the Employment Standards Act in British Columbia right now sees drivers as independent contractors. So we can't introduce this ourselves because otherwise drivers would be considered employees. And this would take away the unique nature of app-based work, which is the flexibility. People choose to drive on Uber because they enjoy this flexibility. They need this flexibility. Flexibility being able to drive when, where, and if you want.
So it's fair to say then that Uber does believe it should be liable to its drivers like every other company is in the province and wants those changes?
Well, we believe app-based work is different than traditional employment, and that more needs to be done to make this work better for those who choose app-based work. But we recognize that the current Employment Standards Act is not something that supports app-based work, and it needs to be modernized. The BC government is actually doing consultations right now to see how they could modernize app-based work, and we're participating in that. We know they've been speaking to a number of drivers, and what we put forward is a package of reforms that would bring new benefits and protections to drivers, one of them being occupational accident coverage that would cover injuries sustained during engaged time, which is the time that a driver picks up a rider and drops them off.
Okay, and I just want to be clear before I let you go that this driver, Amin Sood out of Abbotsford, is not going to get any compensation at this point from Uber for the attack on him and the fact that he can no longer drive.
Well, under the Employment Standards Act in British Columbia today, the driver is considered an independent contractor.
Kirtan Arung, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, BC's Sudanese community is racing against time to find their loved ones stuck in Sudan. The hope is to get them out as Canada deploys troops to evacuate civilians. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream. Earlier in the show, we talked about what the Sunshine Coast is doing to address food insecurity. Actually, they're taking food from farmers, paying for it, and then having people pay what they want to pay rather than going to the food bank. Now, we're heading to Calgary, Alberta, where one man's food cart operation is warming bellies and hearts.
Seems like this is the popular one today. We can make a difference and run a business. It doesn't have to be not-for-profit profit anymore. Mr. Brett? Hi, I'm Tyler Melnick, and I'm the founder of No Fixed Address. I help close the food gap, reducing our waste, while also recognizing that people are suffering in our cities. And I do it through a pay-it-forward model. So paying it forward is $5 to cover the cost of a soup.
So 2 soups.
2 soups?
Yeah.
Thank you. Just drop it in the bowl, and as soon as the soup's ready, we'll make sure to give someone a meal.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. The Huggable is destined to be given away to whoever is facing food insecurity at that moment.
Is it free?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So all I need you to do is pass me the token that's in the bowl right there. That represents the soup that somebody's paid forward. Thank you. Came out from Burlington, Ontario to go to Haskayne School of Business. And when I did, I created a big gap between my family and I. And it's during that time that my dad became more and more disenfranchised since I wasn't checking in or as close with him. He'd always struggled with his own issues, and he became further and further disconnected. And it was one of my last visits home that a friend of mine came and told me that where he was sleeping, and he showed me. It was a bench down at the lake, right on the shores of Lake Ontario. This is creating a legacy for my dad, and this is keeping his memory alive. I have been approached by several other people who've heard the stories, and they've said to me, when can we get this? One of the groups that came to me is actually from Hamilton. They said, look, we're fundraisers. We don't run businesses, but we can get the people in place, and we really want to make this happen in Hamilton. And to me, that was the full circle. It's like what I started here could actually possibly go back to the city where I last saw my dad. I'm just unbelievable. I was tearful. This is your soup, and spoons are here, napkins, salt and pepper, and I'll get you your bread.
Well, after months of back and forth, the province is set to make a decision on the future of policing in Surrey. An announcement on whether the city goes forward with the Surrey Police Service or sticks with the RCMP will come down on Friday. For more, we turn to Municipal Affairs reporter Justin McElroy. Justin, this has been a highly contentious issue for people living in Surrey and for politicians. Can you walk us through the key arguments?
Yeah, no shortage of bad blood between all sides over the last few months as they've been waiting for Solicitor General Mike Farnworth to make his decision, which he will announce on Friday. So the arguments have been well known for a while. I don't think anyone has been convincing anyone to change their mind over the last few weeks. But for a primer of what's on the table, so the reasons why the SPS could go and the RCMP would be in place. A big one is municipal control, that Brenda Locke has asked for this, that council has asked for this, and therefore the province should grant it. You could also make the argument that the Surrey Police Service is still small enough that it can be dissolved with minimal cost compared to the RCMP, and that overall the RCMP is cheaper long-term because of the costs of scale by going with a national force. On the other hand, things that could make the Surrey Police Service stay is the fact Farnworth might go, it's a limited local mandate. Brenda Locke only won narrowly over Doug McCallum last election season. It was only a 5-4 vote on council to switch back. He could also cite that there are province-wide staffing issues with policing right now, and getting rid of the Surrey Police Service and having to bulk up the RCMP could cause more issues. And also the question of whether the RCMP's time in terms of overseeing giant cities in BC has come and gone, especially if BC has its eyes towards putting forward a province-wide police force anytime soon, as was recommended in a provincial committee last year. So we'll see what happens on Friday, but certainly these arguments have been hashed out for a lot. The province has all of the data at their fingertips. The question now becomes the decision that they make.
Yeah, and that decision, sort of a no-win decision for Public Safety Minister, Solicitor General Mike Farnworth. What sort of political fallout might we see here?
Well, we'll have to see, right? If he chooses to say that the RCMP gets in place, then there's going to be a lot of backlash from the Surrey Police Service, which has been built up over the past 3 or 4 years now, and certainly a lot of fallout in terms of just what the province's long-term intent with the RCMP is. However, if he says that, no, the RCMP has to go, the SPS could stay, then that sets up a massive political battle in the years to come with Surrey. Mayor Brenda Locke would be absolutely furious over the fact that the province is deciding what the future of policing is over the will of City Council. We'll have to see what happens on Friday.
Yes, we will. Everyone will be watching closely. Justin McElroy reporting for us tonight. Thank you. British Columbia's Sudanese community, meanwhile, is on edge. Sudan is into the second week of a violent power struggle between the armed forces and a paramilitary force. Canada is deploying roughly 200 troops to help coordinate the evacuation of civilians, but the Sudanese Canadian Society of BC is worried about deteriorating conditions for those who can't get out.
My name is Khalid Babikir Noor Osman. I'm a Sudanese, being in Canada for the last 2.5 years here in BC. What we have done through, we having unified the effort what we had among all of the communities in Canada, from Toronto, Hamilton, every single city where they're having the Sudanese community. We're having a meeting every day. We're trying to locate the people in Sudan with the addresses, the phone numbers, and where are they. We are concerned about the increase of the violence in Khartoum, the shortage in all powers, electricity power station being targeted by the militia, and they bombing all of the areas. There is no water, there is no electricity, there's shortage in medical assistance. The food, again, and that seems to be going to be starvation very soon in Khartoum.
Despite being protected by a hardy shell, there's still plenty of risk if you're a turtle. How a group in the Kootenays is protecting them. Next.
In a brief to the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, DIRA indicated it would try and purchase a large Skid Row hotel with a beer parlor. Rather than make money from the sale of beer and wine, the association would invest any profit from the venture into housing for the East Side. Room rents in the hotel would subsidize residents who wish to stay there, and other accommodation could be found for others in the area who lack adequate living quarters. Bruce Erickson, the president of DIRA, says it is a feasible plan.
We decided that we would form a nonprofit housing corporation and try to buy up some of the hotels which have a very high vacancy or vacancy rate, and to convert those hotels, and at the same time use the beer parlors that exist there to help subsidize the rents. We think that we can run a beer parlor better than at least some of the operators in this area, so at the same time we could demonstrate to them how a good business should be run.
How would you operate it differently?
First of all, there would be absolutely no serving of booze to drunks. I mean, you know, some of these hotels, they serve beer to people, they fall out of their chairs. We would provide coffee, sandwiches, entertainment, and kinds of entertainment that the customers can participate in. But, you know, we'd make sure that no people walked out of our establishment in a state of intoxication.
Erickson insists he's serious about the proposal. The next step is up to CMHC. Bob Gillingham, CBC News, Vancouver.
Mike Steph is away tonight. Kuljeet Kaila is here. And Kuljeet, although we've got some nice weather right now and some nice weather coming, not so great across the province today.
Across the province, we did have some warnings earlier today, Anita, especially for wind warning in the Caribou region, just around Prince George and Dawson Creek. It has been lifted, but that doesn't mean the danger is over. We're going to see some unsettled activity in that area tomorrow with chances of thunderstorms around Prince George under a mix of sun and cloud and 13 degrees, 16 for Williams Lake. It'll be nice and warm for Kelowna at 18, 17 in Cranbrook. Along the coast, wet conditions from Dease Lake down to Port Hardy. So the coast still seeing lots of precipitation for tomorrow. Here in Vancouver, our average high for today was not too far off, as was the low, 90% humidity. Our next hot day of sunshine is going to be this Saturday, and everyone's kind of counting down to it, and here's what it's going to roll out like. Tomorrow, we're going to see a lot of what we saw this afternoon, a mix of sun and cloud, full sunshine for Friday, then on Saturday, up to 28 degrees inland, and those temperatures will drop after that, get a little bit cooler, but the sunshine won't be going away anytime soon, into 18 degrees by mid next week. Anita?
That 28, it just keeps climbing every day.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Kuljeet.
You're welcome.
10 new rules are now in effect, restricting boat speeds and routes to protect BC's southern resident killer whales. Transport Canada, along with the federal departments of Fisheries and Environment, are instating low speed zones in areas off the coast of Vancouver Island where killer whales feed on salmon, and prohibiting vessel traffic or fishing in dedicated sanctuary zones. The Department of Fisheries is also considering the introduction of a year-round restriction on vessels to stay 400 meters from all killer whales along the BC coast. While today may be an ordinary Wednesday for most, one Kootenay community is celebrating Turtle Day. Western painted turtles are known as a blue list species, meaning their habitat is at risk. And at this time of year, the turtles begin to emerge from their nests in search of water. As Corey Bullock reports, the Rocky Mountain naturalists are working to ensure their survival.
There's another little guy poking his head up.
Turtles are beginning to emerge from their nests.
They've been under this ground alive since last August, and they've just stayed under there. We have found some that have come out already, and these ones have not quite come up yet.
Greg Ross is a member of the Rocky Mountain Naturalists. He monitors the turtles and their nests all year long.
We can put them closer to the water because I don't like to leave them just like on the beach or on the sand and just leave them on their own, because it's amazing, like the predators that will come. And that's why they're called Western painted turtles.
Habitat loss from human activity has threatened the southern interior population of Western painted turtles for decades.
Way back in the day, in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s, the city was real gung-ho to get this all just like filled in.
Luckily, that didn't happen. But there are other concerns, like skunks who also prey on the young hatchlings. Ross says that without intervention, Western painted turtles would lose 90% of their nests to predators.
In this situation, only about 10% are predated, and we're hoping for 0%.
Ross and others have been monitoring the nests for the last 30 years. They work closely with the BC Fish and Wildlife Compensation Program.
So Turtle Day is really about encouraging the local school kids to come and the public later on in the day.
And today, some elementary school kids watched demonstrations of how the nests are tended to and dug up in the spring.
So people are more aware of their habitat needs, their life cycle, and to really just get more of a bit of a love-in for Western painted turtles. I mean, that's what it's all about.
The group say they hope the educational opportunity will keep the turtles around for generations to come. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Ending with cute baby turtles tonight. Not sure it gets any better than that. So we'll leave you there. That brings us to the end of our show. Thanks for watching CBC Vancouver News, and we'll see you tomorrow.